The chandelier above me held 1,000 crystals, each one refracting light like fragments of a shattered promise. I stood at the edge of the ballroom, champagne flute clutched too tightly in my hand, watching the glittering crowd swirl in patterns I didn't understand. The St. Regis Hotel always smelled like money. Old leather, French perfume, and the kind of flowers that cost more than my monthly rent. I didn't belong here. My dress, a midnight blue thing I'd found at a consignment shop and altered myself, felt like a costume. But my best friend Maya had insisted. "You need this, Ellie," she'd said, pressing the invitation into my palm. "One night where you remember what it feels like to be someone other than his victim." His. I hadn't said the name aloud in 6 months. Hadn't let myself think it for at least 6 days. But Maya was right. I'd spent too long letting the ghost of Daniel Cartwright define the borders of my world. So here I was, at a charity gala I had no business attending, trying to remember how to stand without hunching my shoulders, how to smile without checking if someone was watching to criticize it. The orchestra began a waltz, something classical and sweeping, that made the room feel even more like a period drama, where I was the extra who'd wandered into frame by mistake. I took a sip of champagne, the bubbles sharp against my tongue, and considered leaving. Maya had already disappeared into the crowd with her husband, and I'd done my part. I'd shown up. That had to count for something. "Ellie?" The voice hit me like cold water down my spine. I froze, the champagne flute halfway to my lips, every muscle in my body locking into a familiar pattern of tension. Slowly I turned. Daniel stood 3 feet away, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his tuxedo fitted with the kind of precision that screamed, "Tailored in Milan." He looked exactly the same. Sharp-featured, handsome in that clean-cut way that had first drawn me in 3 years ago, before I learned that beautiful packaging could hide something rotten. "I thought that was you," he said, his smile easy, practiced. "You look different." Different meant I'd gained weight since we broke up. Different meant my hair was longer, wilder than he'd liked it. Different meant I looked happy, or at least like I was trying to be, and he couldn't stand that. "Daniel." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "What are you doing here?" "My firm's sponsoring the silent auction. Corporate responsibility and all that." He stepped closer, and I smelled his cologne. Something woody and expensive that used to cling to my clothes, my hair, my skin, until I couldn't remember what I'd smelled like before him. "I didn't know you ran in these circles now." The implication was clear. "You don't belong here. You never did." "I'm here with friends," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "Of course." His gaze traveled over me, assessing, cataloging flaws only he could see. "That dress is nice. Vintage?" "Secondhand." He meant secondhand. My fingers tightened on the champagne flute. "It suits you," he continued, his tone suggesting the opposite. "Very bohemian." This was how it had always worked. Little cuts, small enough that I questioned whether they were meant to wound. Death by 1,000 paper slices, until I didn't trust my own perception of reality. "Well, it was good to see you," I managed, taking a step back. His hand shot out, catching my elbow. Not hard enough to hurt. Never hard enough to hurt where anyone could see. But firm enough to stop me. "Don't run off. We should catch up. I've been thinking about you." The words every ex wants to hear, delivered with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. My heart hammered against my ribs, my body remembering what my mind had tried to forget. The feeling of being trapped, of drowning in plain sight, while everyone around me saw only a charming man and his girlfriend. "Let her go." The voice came from behind me, low, and edged with something that made the air temperature drop. Daniel's hand fell away from my arm as his expression shifted, from practiced charm to genuine surprise. I turned. The man standing there was tall enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes, which were so dark they looked black in the chandelier light. His tuxedo fit him like a second skin, emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean, robust build. His face was all sharp angles and strong lines, with a jaw that could cut glass, and a mouth set in a firm line. That suggested he rarely smiled. His black hair was pushed back from his forehead, slightly longer than fashionable, like he couldn't be bothered with trends. But it was his presence that struck me most. The way the space around him seemed to bend, the way other guests unconsciously shifted away, creating a pocket of distance and deference. I'd never seen him before. I would have remembered. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, his lawyer voice sliding into place, the one he used when he wanted to sound reasonable, while being anything but. "This is a private conversation." The stranger's gaze didn't waver from Daniel, And I watched my ex-boyfriend's face pale slightly under that stare. The lady looks uncomfortable. That makes it my concern. And you are? Daniel's hand moved to my lower back. A possessive gesture that made my skin crawl. Claiming ownership in front of a rival. Someone whose patience is limited. The stranger's eyes finally moved to me, and I felt the weight of that stare, like a physical thing. Are you all right? The question was simple, but the way he asked it, like my answer actually mattered, like he was prepared to act on whatever I said, made my throat tight. I'm fine, I said automatically, the response so ingrained I didn't think. His eyes narrowed slightly, reading the lie. Then he did something unexpected. He held out his hand to me, palm up, an invitation. Dance with me instead. It wasn't a question. It was a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. Daniel's fingers pressed harder into my lower back. We were just... I don't think I was asking you. The stranger's tone hadn't changed, but something in it made Daniel's hand fall away. Then those dark eyes returned to me, and for the first time, I saw a hint of something that might have been gentleness. One dance. Unless you'd prefer to stay. He was giving me a choice. When was the last time someone had done that? I set my champagne flute on a passing waiter's tray and placed my hand in his. His palm was warm, calloused in a way that suggested he knew what physical work felt like, despite the expensive tuxedo. His fingers closed around mine with a firmness that felt protective rather than possessive, and he led me toward the dance floor without looking back at Daniel. I felt my ex's stare burning into my back, but I didn't turn around. The stranger pulled me into a waltz hold with the kind of confidence that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. His hand settled at the small of my back, and we began to move. He was a better dancer than I was, guiding me through the steps with subtle pressure and perfect timing, making me look far more graceful than I felt. Thank you, I said quietly, once we'd completed a full rotation, and Daniel had disappeared into the crowd. You didn't have to do that. No, he agreed, I didn't. We danced in silence for a moment, the orchestra swelling around us. I was hyper-aware of his hand at my back, the breadth of his shoulders, the way other dancers gave us more space than necessary, as if we existed in our own orbit. I'm Ellie, I said finally, Ellie Morrison. I know. That made me stumble slightly. His hand tightened, keeping me steady. You know, I make it my business to know who's in a room. His dark eyes studied my face with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. Especially when they look like they're about to shatter. Heat rushed to my cheeks. You were gripping that champagne flute hard enough to break it. Your breathing was shallow, and you stepped back from him 3 times before I intervened. His voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. That's not a conversation between exes who ended amicably. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. We turned again, his movements fluid and controlled, and I realized that everyone was watching us. Not me specifically. Him. The other guests tracked his movement across the floor with a mixture of interest and caution, like watching a panther prowl through a garden party. Who are you? I asked. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. Dangerous question, Ellie Morrison. Should I be afraid of the answer? Probably. He spun me out and back in with practiced ease. But I don't think you are. He was right. I should have been frightened. Of him, of this situation, of the way every instinct in my body was screaming that this man was not safe in any conventional sense of the word. But I wasn't scared. For the first time in 6 months, standing in the arms of a complete stranger who radiated danger like heat, I felt something other than anxiety. I felt alive. My name is Dante, he said finally, as the waltz drew to a close. Dante Moretti. The name meant nothing to me, but I watched the color drain from the face of a woman nearby who'd clearly overheard. Dante's hand remained at my back as he guided me off the dance floor, away from the crowd, toward a quieter corner of the ballroom where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights below. That was quite an entrance, I said, trying for levity, still feeling the phantom warmth of his hand through the thin fabric of my dress. I don't do anything halfway. He turned to face me fully, and in the dimmer light away from the chandelier, his features looked even sharper, more predatory. Your ex-boyfriend, Daniel Cartwright, corporate lawyer at Hendricks & Stone. Drives a BMW 7 Series, lives in a brownstone his parents bought him in Lincoln Park, and has a pending complaint against him from a paralegal at his firm for workplace harassment. My stomach dropped. How do you... I told you. I know who's in a room. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. What I'm curious about is why a woman who clearly has the sense to leave a man like that is at a gala where she knew he'd be. I didn't know, I said quickly. My friend Maya got me the invitation. I haven't been out in months, and she thought I needed to remember what it felt like to be normal again. And is this normal for you, galas and champagne? No. I laughed, the sound brittle. I'm an illustrator. I work from home, mostly on children's books and editorial pieces. This world, I gestured at the ballroom, isn't mine. Yet you move through it with more grace than half the people here who were born to it. His gaze was unwavering, and I had the unsettling sense that he saw far more than I wanted him to. Daniel Cartwright tried to make you small. I can see it in the way you stand, the way you apologized for taking up space when we started dancing. But you're not small, Ellie Morrison. You just forgot. The words hit somewhere deep in my chest, in a place I'd locked away because it hurt too much to acknowledge. My eyes burned with sudden tears I absolutely would not shed in front of this stranger, no matter how surprisingly kind his assessment. Why did you help me? I asked, deflecting. You don't know me. No, he agreed. But I know men like him. They're cowards who hide behind respectability. And I have a particular distaste for cowards. Before I could respond, a man approached from across the room, tall, built like a boxer, with a scar through his left eyebrow. He leaned in and whispered something in Dante's ear. I watched Dante's expression shift, the almost warmth disappearing behind a mask of cold calculation. I need to handle something, Dante said, his attention returning to me. Will you wait here? I should probably go find my friend. Wait, please. The word please sounded rusty, like he didn't use it often. I'd like to continue this conversation. There were 1,000 reasons to say no. To take this bizarre interruption as the exit opportunity it was, and disappear into the crowd, go home, forget this night ever happened. But I'd spent 6 months taking the safe path, the small path, the path Daniel had carved out for me with his constant erosion of my confidence. Okay, I heard myself say, I'll wait. Something flickered in Dante's dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or satisfaction. He nodded once, then turned and followed the scarred man through a side door I hadn't noticed before, leaving me alone by the windows with my reflection and the glittering city below. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, watching the cars move like blood cells through veins of light. What was I doing? Dante Moretti had helped me, yes, but everything about him screamed danger. The way people watched him, the way that woman's face had paled at his name, the casual way he'd gathered intelligence on Daniel like it was nothing. None of that spoke to a normal person living an everyday life. But maybe I was tired of normal. Maybe normal was what had led me to Daniel in the first place, with his respectable job and his respectable family and his respectable face that hid something rotten underneath. There you are! Maya appeared at my elbow, slightly breathless, her dark skin glowing with champagne and excitement. I saw you dancing with... Oh my God, Ellie, do you know who that was? Dante Moretti, I said slowly. Maya, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Dante Moretti, she repeated, gripping my arm. Ellie, he's not just anyone. He's... God, how do I even explain this? She pulled me further into the corner, lowering her voice. My husband does contracts for some of the import businesses downtown. Some names come up. People you don't ask questions about. Dante Moretti is at the top of that list. My stomach tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying he's connected, Ellie. As in organized crime. As in, the reason everyone in this room is pretending not to stare is that he's one of the most powerful men in the city, and nobody wants to end up on his bad side. Maya's eyes were wide, worried. What were you doing dancing with him? I struggled to find words. Daniel was here. He cornered me, and Dante helped. Daniel's here? Maya's expression shifted from concern to anger. That bastard. Where is he? It's fine. Dante got him to back off. I glanced toward the side door where Dante had disappeared. He asked me to wait for him. Ellie, no, we should leave right now. But even as she said it, the door opened again, and Dante emerged. His expression was darker than before, a muscle ticking in his jaw. But when his gaze found mine across the room, something in his face eased fractionally. Maya's grip on my arm tightened. Please tell me you're not going back over there. He helped me, I said quietly. The least I can do is say a proper thank you. A thank you doesn't require staying at a gala with a mob boss. The words mob boss hung in the air between us, crystallizing what Maya had been dancing around. I should have been terrified. Every rational cell in my body should have been screaming to run. But when I looked at Dante Moretti, standing across the room with shadows in his eyes and danger written in every line of his body, all I felt was curiosity and something else. Something that felt dangerously like recognition. Like standing in front of a mirror that showed not what I was, but what I might become if I stopped being afraid. I'll be careful, I promised Maya. Careful? She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Ellie, I spent 6 months being careful, being small, hiding from everything because Daniel convinced me the world was too dangerous, that I needed him to navigate it. I squeezed her hand. I can't keep living like that. Maya's expression softened with reluctant understanding. If you're not out front in an hour, I'm calling the police. Deal. I crossed the ballroom, aware of eyes tracking my movement, conversations pausing as I passed. By the time I reached Dante, my heart was hammering, but I kept my spine straight, my chin up. Everything okay? I asked. Business, he said shortly. Then, seeming to catch himself, he exhaled slowly. Nothing you need to worry about. My friend just told me who you are. I watched his face for a reaction. What you are. And yet you came back. He studied me with that unnerving intensity. Either you're braver than I thought, or more foolish. Maybe both. I crossed my arms, suddenly feeling exposed. Should I be worried? About me? Dante's expression was unreadable. That depends. On what? On whether you plan to become a problem. He said it lightly, but there was steel underneath. I don't harm civilians, Ellie. I have rules. But I also have enemies, and people close to me become targets. That's the reality of my world. Then why ask me to wait? Why not just let me leave? He was quiet for a long moment, and something flickered across his face. Something almost vulnerable before his mask slid back into place. Because in 3 years of attending these tedious events, you're the first person I've met who looked at me like I was human instead of a weapon or a meal ticket. His dark eyes held mine. And because when I touched you, you didn't flinch. The honesty in his words stole my breath. Around us, the gala continued, people laughing and drinking and pretending the world was simple. But here in our corner by the windows, something else was happening. Something that felt like two people who'd spent too long being lonely recognizing each other across a crowded room. I should go, I said, not moving. Yes, Dante agreed. You should. Neither of us moved. The orchestra started a new song, something slower and sadder than before. Dante's jaw tightened, like he was wrestling with something. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Heavy stock, matte black with silver lettering. A phone number. Nothing else. If your ex-boyfriend bothers you again, he said, pressing the card into my hand, call me. I can handle Daniel. I know you can. His fingers lingered on mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. But you shouldn't have to. I looked down at the card, feeling its weight, understanding that accepting it meant something. I meant to open a door I wasn't sure I could close again. That may be the point. Perhaps some doors weren't meant to be closed. Thank you, Dante Moretti, I said softly. For the dance, for the rescue, for treating me like I was worth something. You are worth something. He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Then he stepped back, breaking the spell, and I realized the gala was winding down. Maya caught my eye from across the room, making exaggerated let's go gestures. I slipped the card into my clutch and gave Dante one last look. Good night, I said. Good night, Ellie Morrison. He watched me walk away, and I felt his gaze on my back until I disappeared into the crowd. Maya didn't say a word until we were outside, the cool night air hitting my flushed cheeks like a slap. Are you insane? She finally exploded. Do you have any idea what kind of fire you're playing with? I'm not playing with anything, I said, but my fingers found the card in my clutch, tracing its edges. He helped me. That's all. That's all? Ellie, men like Dante Moretti don't help people out of the goodness of their hearts. They collect debts. They expect payment. He wasn't like that. How would you know? You met him an hour ago. Maya grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. I love you. You're my best friend. And I watched Daniel Cartwright systematically destroy your confidence and your sense of self over 2 years. You're finally starting to heal. Don't trade one dangerous man for another. Her words landed like stones in my chest because they weren't wrong. I didn't know Dante Moretti. Didn't know what he was capable of, what he wanted, why he'd really helped me. For all I knew, Maya was right. I was trading one cage for another, one controller for someone with even more power. But when Daniel had touched me, every cell in my body had screamed to get away. When Dante had touched me, I'd felt something else entirely. I'll be careful, I promised again, the words feeling hollow even as I said them. Maya just shook her head, pulling me into a hug. Call me tomorrow. And Ellie, if you do call that number, think long and hard about what you're really looking for. I held Dante's card all the way home in the Uber, turning it over in my hands in the darkness. My apartment felt smaller when I returned to it, shabbier. My drafting table covered in half-finished illustrations, my threadbare couch, my kitchen the size of a closet. This was my life. Small, safe, manageable. But maybe I was tired of being small. I set the card on my nightstand and lay awake until dawn, watching the shadows shift across my ceiling and wondering what it would feel like to be brave. 3 days passed before I saw Daniel again. I was at the coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment, the one with the good light where I like to work on preliminary sketches. My laptop was open, my sketch pad beside it, and I was deep in rendering a forest scene for a new children's book when his shadow fell across my table. Ellie, what a coincidence. I looked up, my good mood evaporating. Daniel stood there with 2 coffee cups, that practiced smile on his face. He was dressed in a suit, probably on his lunch break from the office downtown. Can I sit? I'm working. Just for a minute, please. He sat anyway, setting one of the coffee cups in front of me. Vanilla latte, extra hot, I remembered. Of course he did. Daniel remembered everything, cataloged every preference and habit so he could use them later, either as proof of how attentive he was, or as ammunition when he wanted to prove I was being unreasonable. What do you want, Daniel? I wanted to apologize. He leaned forward, earnest. For the other night, I came on too strong. It's just, seeing you again brought back a lot of memories. Good ones. I stared at him, looking for the trap, because there was always a trap with Daniel. Okay, apology accepted. You can go now. Don't be like that. His hand reached across the table, covering mine. I miss you. I know things got complicated at the end, but we were good together, Ellie. You know we were. Things got complicated, as Daniel described the 6 months before I finally left, when his criticisms had become constant, when I couldn't do anything right, when I'd started believing that I was lucky he put up with me at all. We weren't good together, I said, pulling my hand away. You were cruel and controlling, and you made me feel like I was worthless. That's not fair. His expression shifted, hurt replacing earnest. I was trying to help you be better. You were so sensitive. You took everything the wrong way. I took things the way you meant them. I started packing up my laptop and my sketches. This conversation is over. Who was that guy? The question came out sharp, the mask slipping. At the gala, the one you danced with. None of your business. Are you seeing him? Daniel's voice rose slightly, drawing looks from other customers. Jesus, Ellie, do you have any idea who Dante Moretti is? What does he do? I know exactly who he is. I stood, slinging my bag over my shoulder. And in 5 minutes with him, I felt more respected than I did in 2 years with you. Daniel stood too, blocking my path. You think a man like that respects you? He's playing with you, Ellie. You're a toy, entertainment, and when he's done, he'll toss you aside and won't even remember your name. Maybe he was right. Probably he was right. But that was my choice to make, my risk to take. Not his. Get out of my way, Daniel. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're trying to control me, again. I stepped around him. Don't contact me. Please don't come to my coffee shop. Please don't show up where I might be. We're done. We've been doing it for 6 months. Accept it. I made it to the door before his voice followed me, loud enough for the whole shop to hear. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're not strong enough to make it without me. The words were meant to wound, meant to plant doubt. And 6 months ago, they would have worked. But something had shifted in me at that gala. In the moment when Dante Moretti looked at me like I was worth defending, worth choosing, worth something. I kept walking. Outside, my hands shook as I pulled out my phone. I meant to call Maya, to decompress, to hear a friendly voice tell me I'd done the right thing. Instead, I found myself pulling out Dante's card, staring at the number embossed in silver. If your ex-boyfriend bothers you again, call me. Daniel had bothered me. I showed up at my regular coffee shop, the one place I felt safe working, made a scene, tried once again to make me feel small. I dialed before I could second-guess myself. The phone rang once, twice, then a voice I'd heard only briefly 3 days ago. Moretti. It's Ellie. The words came out rushed. Ellie Morrison, from the Gala. You gave me your card and said to call if Daniel bothered me again, and I know it's been 3 days, and maybe you didn't really mean it, but he showed up at my coffee shop and... Where are you? The question was calm, measured, not annoyed at being called, just asking for information. The corner brew on Halstead. I left, but he's probably still there and it's where I work most days. And now he knows that, and... Stay where you are, I'm sending someone. Someone? No, I don't need... Ellie. My name and his voice made me stop talking. Did he touch you? Just my hand. It wasn't violent or anything, just... Did you want him to touch you? No. Then he touched you without permission. That's enough. I heard movement in the background, voices. My associate Marco will be there in 10 minutes. Black SUV. He'll escort you home and make sure your ex-boyfriend understands that your boundaries are to be respected. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. A pause. Actually, that's a lie. I'm not offering. I'm doing it whether you want me to or not because men like Daniel Cartwright need to understand that there are consequences for their actions. I should have been offended by the high-handedness. Should have insisted I could handle my own problems. But I was tired of handling things alone. Of being strong when I felt like tissue paper. Of pretending I was fine when I was one more confrontation away from shattering. Okay, I whispered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Something in his tone shifted, darkened. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you want Daniel Cartwright to disappear? My blood went cold. What? It's a simple question. One word from you and he stops being a problem. Permanently. You mean, I couldn't finish the sentence. I mean, he wouldn't bother you anymore. Ever. Dante's voice was calm, like he was offering to fix a leaky faucet instead of whatever he was actually offering. I have resources, I have methods, and I have a particular hatred for men who hurt women. I stood on the street corner, people flowing past me like water around a stone, and processed what Dante Moretti was offering. He was serious. Completely serious. One word from me, and Daniel would cease to exist. No, I said firmly. I don't want that. I want him to leave me alone, but I don't want him dead. You're sure? I'm sure. A long exhale. All right. Then Marco will explain the situation to Mr. Cartwright in terms Mr. Cartwright will understand. No permanent solutions, just clear boundaries. What does explain in terms he'll understand mean? It means your ex-boyfriend is about to have a very educational conversation about respecting women's autonomy. He'll be fine. Scared, but fine. I heard something that might have been amusement in Dante's voice. Marco has a particular gift for persuasive dialogue. Despite everything, I almost smiled. You're insane. Probably. Black SUV, 10 minutes. Marco is 6'3", built like a truck, and has a scar through his left eyebrow. Don't get in any other vehicles. Dante... Yes? I didn't know what I wanted to say. Thank you felt inadequate. This is crazy. Felt obvious. Why are you doing this? I feel too vulnerable. So I settled on, I owe you. No, he said quietly. You don't. This is what people should do for each other. Protect, defend, care. A pause. Someone should have done it for you a long time ago. I'm just correcting an oversight. The line went dead before I could respond. Marco arrived in exactly 10 minutes, just as Dante had promised. The black SUV pulled up to the curb, and a mountain of a man stepped out, the same one who'd whispered to Dante at the Gala. Up close, he was even more intimidating, but his expression was neutral, almost kind. Ms. Morrison? His voice was surprisingly soft for someone his size. I'm Marco. Mr. Moretti sent me. I know. I mean, he told me you'd be coming. I felt ridiculous, standing on the street corner while a mobster's henchman opened the car door for me like I was someone important. If you'll wait in the vehicle, I'll have a brief conversation with Mr. Cartwright, then escort you home. Marco's expression didn't change. You're safe. I promise. I got in the SUV, watching through tinted windows as Marco disappeared into the coffee shop. 5 minutes later, Daniel emerged, Marco's hand on his shoulder, guiding him to the alley beside the building. I couldn't hear what was said, but I watched Daniel's face cycle through anger, indignation, and finally fear as Marco spoke. When they emerged 2 minutes later, Daniel was pale, nodding rapidly, and Marco was perfectly calm. Daniel left in the opposite direction, walking fast, and Marco returned to the SUV. All settled, he said, sliding into the driver's seat. Mr. Cartwright has agreed to respect your boundaries. He won't be contacting you again. What did you say to him? Marco's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, and I saw a hint of humor there. I explained that certain powerful people have taken an interest in your well-being, and that any further harassment would be viewed as a personal insult requiring a personal response. He pulled into traffic. I also mentioned that I knew where he lived, where he worked, where his mother gets her hair done, and where his sister's kids go to preschool. My stomach dropped. You threatened his family? I provided context. Marco's tone was mild. I made it clear that his actions have reach and consequence. That's different from a threat. Mr. Cartwright is a bully, Ms. Morrison. Bullies back down when they realize they're not the strongest person in the room. That's all that happened. I sat back against the leather seat, processing. This was Dante's world, a place where problems were solved with intimidation and veiled threats. where knowing someone's mother's salon was a weapon, where ex-boyfriends could be handled with a 5-minute conversation in an alley. I should have been horrified. Instead, I felt something uncomfortably close to relief. Marco drove me to my apartment building, waited while I got out, then handed me a phone through the window. Sleek, black, expensive looking. "From Mr. Moretti," he said. His personal line is programmed in. "If you need anything, and I mean anything, call. Someone will answer. Always." I can't accept this. With respect, Ms. Morrison, yes, you can. Mr. Moretti doesn't make gestures lightly. He's chosen to extend his protection to you. That phone is part of that protection. Marco's expression softened slightly. He's not a bad man, just a man who lives in a bad world. There's a difference. Before I could respond, the SUV pulled away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with a burner phone in my hand and my whole life tilted sideways. I went upstairs to my apartment, locked the door, and stood in my tiny kitchen, trying to understand what had just happened. Dante Moretti had sent an associate to intimidate my ex-boyfriend into leaving me alone. Had given me a direct line to what Maya had called one of the most powerful men in the city. Had offered to make Daniel disappear and accepted my refusal without argument. None of it made sense. We'd danced once, spoken for 15 minutes total. I was nobody. A freelance illustrator living in a 400-square-foot apartment with student loan debt and a credit score that made banks laugh. What possible interest could a man like Dante have in me? The new phone buzzed. A text from a number with no name. "Daniel won't bother you anymore. If he does, could you call?" I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back. "Thank you. I don't understand why you're doing this, but thank you." His response came immediately. "You reminded me what it feels like to care about something. That's rare in my world. Worth protecting." My heart did something complicated in my chest. Before I could think better of it, I typed, "Would you like to have coffee sometime? Do you think I can thank you properly?" The 3 dots indicating he was typing appeared, disappeared, and appeared again. Finally, "Yes. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I just wanted to let you know that. I'll send a car. I can meet you somewhere," I wrote back. "Humor me. I don't like leaving you exposed. I should have argued. Should have insisted on maintaining independence, on not letting another man dictate terms." But there was something in Dante's protectiveness that felt different from Daniel's control. Daniel had wanted me to be minor and dependent. Dante seemed to like me safe. That could be a distinction worth exploring. Okay, I sent 2 p.m. Marco will pick you up. You should wear something comfortable. Where we're going isn't fancy. That surprised me. I'd expected another expensive venue, another display of wealth and power. Instead, Dante was taking me somewhere comfortable, somewhere real. I'm really looking forward to it. I sent it and meant it. I spent the rest of the evening working on illustrations, but my mind kept drifting back to dark eyes and a voice that made promises it probably shouldn't keep. Maya called and I told her everything. The coffee shop confrontation, Marco, the phone, the coffee date tomorrow. She was horrified and resigned in equal measure. "You're really doing this," she said. "Getting involved with a mobster. I'm having coffee with someone who helped me." "Ellie, I know it's dangerous, probably stupid, and definitely reckless. But Maya, for the first time in years, I feel like someone sees me, really sees me, not just who they want me to be." I curled up on my couch, pulling a blanket around my shoulders. Maybe it's a disaster waiting to happen, but I need to find out. She was quiet for a long moment. "Okay, but I'm tracking your location tomorrow, and if you don't text me every hour, I'm calling the police. Mob boss be damned. Deal." The next day, I changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans, a soft green sweater, and boots. Comfortable, like he'd said, but still put together. I didn't know why I cared what Dante Moretti thought of my appearance, but I couldn't pretend I didn't. Marco arrived at 1:45 p.m. in the same black SUV. He greeted me with a nod and held the door open, the picture of professional courtesy. We drove in silence through the city, heading away from downtown toward an older neighborhood I didn't know well. The buildings here were shorter, brick and stone, with family restaurants and small businesses rather than corporate high-rises. We stopped in front of a bakery. Small, family-owned by the look of it, with Italian words painted on the window and the smell of fresh bread drifting into the street. Marco came around to open my door. "Mr. Moretti is inside," he said. "I'll be out here if you need anything." The bell chimed as I entered. The bakery was warm and cozy, with exposed brick walls covered in old photographs, small tables scattered throughout, and a counter displaying pastries that looked homemade. Dante sat at a table in the back corner, his back to the wall, dressed in dark jeans and a black sweater that made him look younger, less intimidating, almost normal. He stood when he saw me, and something in his expression eased. "You came. You sent a very persuasive card." I slid into the seat across from him, accepting the coffee he pushed toward me. "This is not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Another fancy hotel? A restaurant with a Michelin star? Somewhere that screamed power and money?" I glanced around the bakery. Not a neighborhood bakery that smells like my grandmother's kitchen. This place has been here for 60 years. The owner, Mrs. Castellano, makes the best cannoli in Chicago. Dante's expression softened, as if with genuine affection. "She knew my mother. Used to give me cookies when I was a kid and trying to steal bread." The glimpse of his past surprised me. "You grew up around here?" 3 blocks over, in an apartment smaller than this bakery." He took a sip of his espresso. "My father worked the docks. My mother cleaned houses. We had nothing. And then we had less than nothing when he died. And she worked herself into an early grave trying to keep us fed." "I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me to survive, to fight, to understand that the world doesn't care about your circumstances. You have to care enough for everyone." His dark eyes met mine. "It's why I do what I do." "Which is?" "Protect what's mine. Build power so no one can take from me what they took from my mother. Safety, dignity, choice." He leaned back, studying me. "You think I'm a monster. Most people do. I think you're complicated." I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, feeling its warmth. "I think you've done things I probably don't want to know about. But I also think you saw someone who needed help and helped them, which is more than most people would do." "Self-interest," he said. "You intrigued me." "Why?" "Because you're stronger than you think you are. Because when I touched you, you didn't treat me like a weapon or a bank account. You treated me like a person." He paused. "And because I saw myself in you. Someone who'd been made to feel powerless, who was done accepting that." The honesty in his words stole my breath. This was not what I'd expected. Not vulnerability, not recognition, not this quiet conversation in a bakery that smelled like home. Mrs. Castellano emerged from the back, a tiny Italian woman with flour on her apron and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at me, then at Dante, and her weathered face broke into a smile. "Dante, you brought a girl." She bustled over, wiping her hands. "Finally a nice girl, pretty, not one of those painted ones who only see your wallet." "Mrs. C, this is Ellie. Ellie, this is the woman who kept me alive through high school with free bread. Free because you fixed my walk-in freezer. Free because you scared away the boys who tried to rob me. Free because you're a good boy, Dante, no matter what people say." She patted his cheek with genuine affection, then turned to me. "You keep him honest, yes? He needs someone to remind him he's human." Before I could respond, she disappeared back into the kitchen, returning moments later with a plate of cannoli that looked like art. Eat, talk, fall in love. That's what my bakery is for. She left us with the pastries and a wink that made Dante actually smile. A genuine smile, not the controlled expression he showed the world. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous. "I like her," I said. "Everyone does. She's proof that good people exist. even in neighborhoods like this. He pushed the plate toward me. Try one. I promise it'll change your life. I bit into the cannoli, and the ricotta filling melted on my tongue. Sweet, creamy, perfect. Oh my God. Told you. We ate in comfortable silence for a moment, and I marveled at how easy this felt. How normal. Sitting in a bakery with a man I barely knew, eating pastries and drinking coffee like we'd done this 100 times before. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Yes. Why me, really? We danced once. You don't know me, and you've clearly gone out of your way to help me. Why? Dante was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his espresso cup. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. Because I spend every day in a world where loyalty is bought. Trust is a weapon, and everyone wants something from me. Power, money, protection. They look at me and see what I can do for them. His eyes lifted to mine. You looked at me and saw a person. That's so rare in my life that it felt like finding water in a desert. I'd be a fool not to protect that. The vulnerability in his admission made my chest tight. I don't know what to say. Say you'll have dinner with me next week. Somewhere nicer than this, where I can take you out properly. A ghost of a smile. Say you'll let me keep getting to know you, even though it's probably dangerous for both of us. Dangerous how? Because my enemies will see you as a weakness to exploit. And because once I decide something is mine, I don't let go easily. His gaze was intense, unwavering. I won't lie to you, Ellie. My world is violent, dark. I've done things that would horrify you. But I can also promise that if you give me a chance, I will never make you feel small. I will never tear you down to build myself up. And I will protect you with everything I have. It was too much, too fast, too intense. I should have made excuses, thanked him for the coffee, and disappeared back into my safe, small life. But maybe I was tired of being safe. Perhaps I was ready to take a risk on something that scared me for the right reasons instead of the wrong ones. Okay, I heard myself say, dinner next week, but Dante... Yes? I need you to understand something. I can't be a possession. I can't be something you own or control. I just got out of a relationship where I completely lost myself. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, I need to know you understand that. I don't want to own you. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. I want to know you. There's a difference. His palm was warm against my skin, calloused and strong, and I felt the promise in that touch. Protection without possession, interest without control. It could be a lie. Probably was a lie, at least partly. But I wanted to believe it badly enough to try. Dinner next week, I repeated. Somewhere nice. And you have to promise no more intimidating my ex-boyfriends without asking first. I can't promise that. Dante, I can promise to tell you before I do it. How's that for compromise? Despite myself, I laughed. You're impossible. I'm honest. In my world, that counts for a lot. He squeezed my hand gently, then released it. Finish your cannoli. Then I'm taking you somewhere. Where? You'll see. Marco drove us to a community center in the same neighborhood, a building that looked recently updated, with fresh paint and new windows. Dante led me inside, past a gym where kids were playing basketball and a computer lab where teenagers were working on assignments, to a small art studio filled with easels and supplies. This is mine, he said, gesturing to the space. I funded it 5 years ago. Kids from the neighborhood can come here after school, take classes, and learn skills. Art, music, coding, whatever interests them. It's free. All of it. I stared at him, reassessing everything I thought I knew. You run a community center? I found it. Mrs. Rodriguez runs it. He nodded toward a woman organizing paints at the far end of the room. She's a retired art teacher who understands these kids better than anyone. I make sure she has what she needs. Why are you showing me this? Because you think I'm only what people say I am. Criminal, mobster, dangerous. He turned to face me. I'm those things. But I'm also someone who remembers being a kid with nothing, who knows that one opportunity can change everything. This is my opportunity for them. I walked through the studio, looking at the artwork covering the walls. Childish drawings mixed with sophisticated pieces, evidence of growth, learning, and care. This wasn't a vanity project or a tax write-off. This was real, personal. I had no idea people like you did things like this, I said honestly. People like me keep communities safe. We take care of our own. The government doesn't care about neighborhoods like this, doesn't fund programs or protect families. So we do. His voice was matter of fact. I won't apologize for how I make my money, but I will use it to make sure kids have a better shot than I did. I turned to look at him. This complicated man who intimidated my ex-boyfriend and funded art programs for children, who made veiled threats and baked goods with Italian grandmothers. He defied every category I tried to put him in, and that scared me almost as much as it intrigued me. You're not what I expected, I admitted. Neither are you. He stepped closer, and I caught his scent. Something clean and masculine with a hint of coffee. Most people see the danger and run. You see it and stay. Why? Because I spent 2 years with someone who seemed safe and turned out to be toxic. Maybe danger is relative. I held his gaze. And because you've shown me more respect in 3 days than Daniel did in 2 years. That means something. It should mean everything. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw with surprising gentleness. I could hurt you, Ellie. Not because I want to, but because my world eventually hurts everyone in it. You should know that before you decide anything. I know. My voice came out breathless. I'm choosing to try anyway. Something flared in his dark eyes, heat and hunger, and something else, something that looked dangerously like hope. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me, and my heart hammered against my ribs with anticipation and fear in equal measure. But he just smiled, that genuine smile that transformed his face, and stepped back. Dinner next week. I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something that makes you feel powerful. Is that an order? It's a request from someone who wants to see you shine. Marco drove me home as the sun set, the city glowing gold and orange through the tinted windows. I clutched the phone Dante had given me and tried to process everything that had happened. A week ago, I was hiding from the world, terrified of running into my ex-boyfriend, convinced I was too damaged for anyone to care about. Now I had a mob boss's personal number, a community center full of kids who didn't know how lucky they were, and a dinner date with the most dangerous man in Chicago. My phone buzzed, my regular phone this time. Maya. Still alive? Very much so. Just met with Dante. We had coffee and cannoli. It was nice. Nice. Was the mobster nice? He showed me a community center he funds for underprivileged kids. Told me about his mother. Was actually human. Ellie, you're falling for him. I stared at that message for a long time before typing back. I know. Is that completely insane? Probably. But I've never heard you sound this alive in years. Just be careful. Please. I will, promise. But as I got ready for bed that night, I wondered if being careful was even possible anymore. Dante Moretti had crashed into my life like a wrecking ball, demolishing the walls I'd built around myself. And I didn't know if I wanted to rebuild them or just let them stay broken. The week passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Daniel didn't contact me. Not a text, not a call, not a coincidental appearance at my coffee shop. Whatever Marco had said to him had apparently stuck. I finished the forest illustration for my children's book, started preliminary sketches for a new project, and tried not to obsess over what dress to wear to dinner with a man who made my pulse race and my common sense flee. When Saturday arrived, I stood in front of my closet for an hour before settling on a dress I'd bought 2 years ago, but never worn. Deep emerald green, fitted at the bodice and flowing at the skirt, with a neckline that showed just enough to be interesting. Wear something that makes you feel powerful, Dante had said. This dress made me feel beautiful. Maybe that was the same thing. Marco arrived at exactly 7, And this time, when I slid into the SUV, Dante was waiting in the back seat. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent, his dark hair styled back, his expression unreadable until his eyes landed on me. Then his face transformed with that rare, genuine smile. "You're stunning," he said. "You clean up pretty well yourself." I tried for casual and missed by a mile, too aware of the way his gaze traveled over me with evident appreciation. "I'm taking you to Marchesi. It's exclusive, Italian, and the owner owes me several favors. We'll have privacy." He reached over and took my hand, threading his fingers through mine like we'd done this 100 times. "Is that okay?" "It's perfect." The sincerity in his voice undid me. I'd spent 2 years with Daniel, constantly pushing and demanding, eroding my boundaries, until I didn't know where I ended and he began. Dante was offering me time, space, choice, everything I'd been denied. "I want to try," I said softly. "Slowly, but I want to try." The smile that broke across his face was worth every risk. "Slowly, I can do it slowly." Marco drove us back toward my apartment, but Dante asked him to take the scenic route along the lake. We sat in comfortable silence, my hand still in his, watching the city lights reflect off the dark water. When we finally pulled up to my building, Dante walked me to the door, despite Marco's presence. "Thank you for tonight," I said, turning to face him on the steps. "For dinner, for being honest, for being you. Thank you for giving me a chance." He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that made my breath catch. "Good night, Ellie Morrison." "Good night, Dante Moretti." I floated up to my apartment, changed out of my dress, and lay in bed grinning at the ceiling like a teenager. My phone, the regular one, buzzed with a text from Maya. "How was it?" "Perfect," I sent back. "Absolutely perfect." "Oh God, you're in deep." "I know, and I don't care." Because for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like myself. Not the diminished version Daniel had created, not the careful, small person I'd become to survive. Just me, flawed and complicated, and brave enough to take a risk on something that scared me. The next 3 weeks were a blur of texts, phone calls, and carefully planned dates. Dante took me to a jazz club, where a singer made the room weep. I dragged him to an art supply store, where he patiently listened to me explain different types of paper, while clearly having no idea what I was talking about. We had breakfast at Mrs. Castellano's bakery, dinner at hole-in-the-wall restaurants he knew from childhood, and coffee at my favorite spot, where the owner now greeted Dante with wary respect. He was careful with me, never pushed for more than I was ready to give, held my hand, kissed my cheek, made me laugh, made me feel seen, and slowly, carefully, I let my walls come down. But good things in Dante's world never lasted without complication. I was working at home on a Tuesday afternoon, when my regular phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Ellie Morrison?" A woman's voice, professional and cold. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Detective Sarah. I'm with the Organized Crime Unit. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Dante Moretti." My blood went cold. I'm not, Ms. Morrison. I'm not accusing you of anything. But you've been seen with Mr. Moretti multiple times over the past month. You've accepted gifts from him. You've been to his properties. That makes you a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Investigation into what? I can't discuss that over the phone, but I strongly suggest you come down to the station and talk to us, for your own protection. Am I under arrest? No. But if you care about staying out of trouble, you'll cooperate. A pause. Mr. Moretti is not a good man, Ms. Morrison. Whatever he's told you, whatever you think you know about him, he's dangerous. People who get close to him get hurt. I'm trying to prevent that from happening to you. She gave me an address and hung up before I could respond. I sat staring at my phone, my hands shaking. An investigation. The police. Everything Dante had warned me about was crashing down, and I'd been naive enough to think I could exist in his world without consequence. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "Ellie, what's wrong?" "A detective just called me. Chen. She wants me to come to the station, said I'm a person of interest in an investigation." "Don't go." His voice was sharp, controlled. "Don't talk to her. Don't answer any questions. This is harassment, not a legitimate inquiry. How do you know? Because Chen has been trying to build a case against me for 2 years and has nothing, so she goes after people I care about, tries to scare them into turning on me. I heard movement in the background. Where are you? Home. Stay there. I'm coming over. Don't open the door for anyone but me, understand? Dante, I'm not... Ellie. My name was a command and a plea. Trust me, please. Stay where you are. The line went dead. I paced my apartment, my mind spinning. This was real. Not theoretical danger, not vague threats. Actual police involvement, actual investigation. I was dating a man the police considered a criminal, and now I was caught in the crossfire. 20 minutes later, a knock at my door. It's me, Dante's voice called. I opened it to find him standing in my hallway looking more tense than I'd ever seen him, Marco looming behind him like a shadow. Are you okay? Dante stepped inside, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching mine. Did she threaten you? Did she try to... She just said I should come talk to her, that you're dangerous and people close to you get hurt. I pulled away, needing space to think. Is she wrong? No. The admission was blunt. She's not wrong. I am dangerous. People close to me do get hurt. I told you that from the beginning. So what am I supposed to do? Hide? Run? Pretend I don't know you? You're supposed to let me protect you. His jaw tightened. Chen is fishing. She has nothing solid, or she'd have already arrested someone. She's hoping to scare you into giving her information she can use against me. It's a tactic. What if I did talk to her? What if I cooperated? Something flashed in Dante's eyes. Not anger, but pain. Then you'd be making yourself a target. Not just to me, but to everyone who wants to take me down. You'd be marking yourself as an informant, and in my world, that's a death sentence. Jesus, Dante. I know. I know how this sounds. But I'm trying to keep you safe, Ellie. That means keeping you as far away from Chen and her investigation as possible. He took a breath, visibly calming himself. I should go. Being here puts you at risk. No. I caught his arm before he could turn away. Don't go, please. Ellie, I knew what I was getting into. Maybe not the details, but I knew your world was dangerous. I chose to be in it anyway. I moved closer, looking up into his dark eyes. I'm scared. I won't lie about that. But I'm not walking away. Not unless you want me to. Want you to? His laugh was bitter. You're the best thing that's happened to me in 10 years. The thought of you walking away makes me want to burn the world down. His hands came up to cup my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. But I can't be selfish with you, if staying with me puts you in danger. I kissed him. It was impulsive, probably stupid, and absolutely what I needed. I pressed up on my toes and pressed my lips to his, cutting off his words with action. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then his arms came around me, pulling me close, and he kissed me back with an intensity that stole my breath. His mouth was firm and warm, tasting faintly of coffee, his hand strong at my back, holding me like I was precious. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. You're making this very difficult, he murmured. Good. You deserve difficulty. I smiled despite the fear still churning in my stomach. We'll figure this out. Together. Right? Together. He kissed me again, softer this time, a promise. I won't let anything happen to you. I swear it. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Dante posted Marco outside my building that night, and every night after. Detective Chen didn't call again, but I felt her presence anyway. A shadow at the edge of my life, a reminder that happy endings in Dante's world came with conditions. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. I was leaving my coffee shop, My regular one, the place I'd reclaimed after Marco's talk with Daniel. When a car pulled up beside me. Black sedan, tinted windows. Not Marco's SUV. The window rolled down, and a man I didn't recognize leaned out. "Get in, Ms. Morrison. Someone wants to talk to you." "I don't think so." I kept walking, reaching for the phone Dante had given me. The man was out of the car before I could dial, his hand closing around my wrist hard enough to hurt. That wasn't a request. Fear spiked through me, sharp and cold. "Let go of me." "Now." The voice came from behind the man, low and lethal. Marco appeared from nowhere, his hand on the man's shoulder, yanking him away from me with enough force to make the stranger stumble. 2 more men emerged from the shadows. Part of Dante's security I hadn't even known was there. "You're making a mistake," the stranger said, backing toward his car. "Tell Moretti that Vincent Russo wants to talk. We have his girlfriend. That means we have leverage." "You have nothing." Marco's voice was ice. "Leave, now, before this gets messy." The stranger got back in his car and peeled away, leaving me shaking on the sidewalk. Marco turned to me, his expression grim. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Now." "What just happened? Who's Vincent Russo?" "Someone who's about to regret being born." Marco's hand was gentle on my elbow, guiding me toward the SUV. "Mr. Moretti needs to know about this immediately." 10 minutes later, I was in a penthouse I'd never seen before. Dante's, I realized, taking in the modern furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dante paced like a caged animal, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice clipped and dangerous as he gave orders to people I couldn't see. When he finally hung up, he looked at me with eyes gone black with fury. "You're staying here, with me, until this is resolved." "Dante, I can't just move in." "Vincent Russo is a rival. He's been trying to take territory from me for 6 months, and now he's decided the best way to do that is to go after you." He crossed to me, his hands framing my face with surprising gentleness despite the anger radiating from him. "I won't let him touch you, but that means you stay where I can protect you. No arguments." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." His jaw tightened. "I'm ending this, tonight. Russo wants a war, he'll get one, but you'll be safe here, I promise." "What are you going to do?" "What I have to." He kissed my forehead, then my lips, lingering like he was memorizing the taste. "Marco will stay with you. Don't leave this building. Please don't open the door for anyone but me. And Ellie." His dark eyes burned into mine. "If something happens to me..." "Don't." I pressed my fingers to his lips. "Don't say that. You're coming back." "I'm coming back," he agreed. "But if I don't, Marco knows what to do. He'll keep you safe. Get you somewhere Russo can't find you. You'll be okay." "I don't want to be okay without you." The words were out before I could stop them, raw and honest. Dante's expression cracked, showing the man underneath the mob boss, vulnerable and human and terrified of losing me. "I love you," he said. "I didn't mean to. Didn't plan to. But I do. And I need you to know that before I walk out that door." My heart stopped, started again, raced. "Dante!" "You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." He kissed me one more time, hard and desperate. "Stay safe. I'll be back before morning." Then he was gone, and I was alone in his penthouse with Marco standing guard, and my entire world tilted on its axis. "I love you." 3 words I'd never expected to hear from him, delivered like a battlefield confession. And the terrifying truth was that I loved him too. Loved his complexity, his honesty, and the way he made me feel strong. Loved the community center, the cannoli, and the gentle way he touched me, as I might break. Loved all of it, despite the danger, despite the fear, despite every logical reason not to. The hours crawled by. Marco stationed himself by the door, silent and watchful. I tried to work on illustrations but couldn't focus. Tried to sleep, but kept seeing that stranger's hand on my wrist, and kept hearing Dante say, if something happens to me. At 4 a.m., the penthouse door opened. I shot upright on the couch where I'd been failing to rest, my heart in my throat. Dante walked in, and relief flooded through me so intensely I felt dizzy. He was rumpled, his shirt untucked, a bruise darkening along his jaw. But he was alive. Whole. "It's done," he said quietly. "Russo won't bother you again. No one will." "What happened?" "Nothing you need details about." He crossed to me, pulling me into his arms. "You're safe. That's what matters." I buried my face against his chest, breathing in his scent, feeling his heart beat steady and strong under my cheek. We stood there for a long moment, just holding each other, and I felt something in me finally settle. This was my choice. This dangerous, complicated man and the life that came with him. I was choosing it with my eyes open. "I love you too," I whispered against his shirt. His arms tightened around me. "Repeat it." "I love you, Dante Moretti. Even though you're dangerous and complicated, and you scare the hell out of me sometimes." I pulled back to look up at him. "I love you anyway." He kissed me then, deep and thorough and full of promise. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Move in with me, here. Where can I keep you safe?" "That's moving pretty fast." "I know, but I almost lost you today. I can't go through that again." His voice was rough. "I need you close, please." I should have said no. Should have insisted on maintaining independence, on not getting swept up in intensity and danger. But I'd tried independent. I'd tried safe. And neither had made me feel half as alive as this man did. "Okay," I said, "but I'm keeping my apartment for work, and you don't get to tell me what to do." "Deal." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. "Anything else?" "You have to come to Sunday brunch with Maya and her husband, so they can properly interrogate you." "Your friend who thinks I'm going to murder you in your sleep?" "That's the one." He laughed, the sound surprised out of him. "All right, Sunday brunch it is, though I make no promises about surviving her interrogation." "You face down Vincent Russo tonight. I think you can handle Maya." "You'd be surprised. Mothers and best friends are far more terrifying than mobsters." We stayed wrapped around each other as the sun rose over the city, painting the sky gold and pink. Somewhere out there, Vincent Russo was learning what happened when you threatened Dante Moretti's people. Somewhere out there, Detective Chen was still building her case. Somewhere out there, Daniel was living with the consequences of his actions. But here, in this penthouse high above it all, I was safe, loved, chosen. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt strong enough to handle whatever came next. 3 months later, I stood in the community center art room, watching kids work on their projects while Dante talked with Mrs. Rodriguez about funding for a new music program. My illustration work was going well. I'd landed a contract for a full children's book series and had converted one of Dante's guest rooms into a proper studio. Maya and her husband had survived the infamous brunch and now had monthly dinners with us, where Maya alternated between maternal concern and grudging approval. Life was good. Complicated and dangerous in ways I never could have predicted, but good. Dante caught my eye across the room and smiled, and my heart did that complicated flip it always did when he looked at me like I was the best thing in his world. A little girl tugged on my sleeve. "Ms. Ellie, can you help me with my drawing?" "Of course, sweetie. What are you working on?" She showed me a picture of a princess and a dragon, both smiling, both friends. Everyone says princesses are supposed to be scared of dragons, but I think they could be friends instead. Is that okay? I thought about mob bosses and illustrators, danger and safety, all the ways love could surprise you. I think that's more than okay. I think that's perfect. Because sometimes the things that should scare us are precisely what we need. Sometimes danger wears a gentle face, and sometimes, if you're courageous and fortunate, you find someone who sees past your scars to the person you're becoming. I'd run into my toxic ex at a gala, and a mob boss had pulled me close. It should have been the beginning of a nightmare. Instead, it was the beginning of everything.